How's it going, guys? How you doing?
Doing good.
Doing good.
Long day
Uh,
of work, but glad to be home. Chatting with you
you
guys.
just got home, right?
Yeah.
Any
Yeah.
highlights?
No highlights today. Just a bunch of low lights. Low uh the the algorithm was against me today at work.
Ah, the algorithm of
But
life.
yeah, I work for tips, so the tip algorithm.
Oh, okay,
But
makes sense.
yeah, other than that, good. How about you, Brandon?
Good.
Yeah, just being back at work this week after feeling like I've been off for like a month is been a challenge. Like the hardest part's just getting up and going. So as long as I make it
Mm-hmm.
there, as long as I make it there, I'm winning as far as I'm concerned.
I wasn't off work nearly as long as you were, and I was off for like two days of work. And going back to work on Friday. I've been late every day since going back to work. Like I can't. Something in me just can't do it. Last night it
All
was
right.
Destiny. So
How late did you stay up last night?
I stayed on for another hour after y'all got off. Um, just doing a few things and trying to get the hang of things again.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna ask what are the initial thoughts on getting back into Destiny 2?
Mm,
I'm down.
you.
I'm waiting on the first person to spend money on it. I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to be the first one, or I'm not going to admit it either. As soon as someone says, "Well, I bought the battle pass," I'm like,
Me
"We're
too.
in."
Matter of fact.
I've gotten to a point if I play anything with the Battle Pass now, like outside of Fortnite, since I play with my son, I'll I'll try to complete it before I buy it. That way,
Mm,
I feel like I got my money's worth. Because if I buy it and then don't
that's fair.
complete it, it feels it's such a waste. So,
What
um,
about those free levels? You get that boost.
nothing's free.
Yeah, you're right.
It's such a time-consuming game though, because that time we played
Mm.
last night felt like nothing.
Well, like an hour of it or more was all some bit of user error slash um, troubleshooting. I'm just trying to just hear each other.
Yeah.
That we spent a long time on that.
Oh, dude,
There's
yeah.
probably a good
I,
15, 20 minutes of that
I mean,
before you got on.
yeah, and like we were standing around in the tower. Like I'll just do that just
just make,
because. And we were
yeah,
actually trying to get shit done and standing around in the tower for a decent amount of time.
yeah. I nearly resorted to drinking. I was getting so frustrated with it. I was just like, this is just, I need a drink. But it was fun once we got it going.
Yeah, for sure.
How'd you feel about it, Brandon?
So, I mean, like always, the gameplay really nice, but the frustrating part came like at the end when we're trying to figure out like what resources we have to buy what like specific items and stuff, and just think we only played that one game mode, or like at least there at the end, and went to that one item shop section, and that's just got has its own like tiered system of currency, and that's just one. There's probably like
Yeah.
7 or 8 different systems, and it's just so overwhelming.
Every game type has an economy.
Yeah,
It's
Every
like a whole
menu
thing
has
to it.
three submenus.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a me and Noah used to joke about how it's like a menu simulator because for me personally, every time I open up a menu, it's the wrong fucking one. I never open up the right one first,
Mm-hmm.
like habitually. And sometimes back to back. Like I open up the wrong menu, back out, open up the wrong menu again. It's
Yeah.
and
Well, and I realized it was. Sorry, go ahead,
No,
Brandon.
you go.
Well, I was gonna say I realized that as I was playing it, like you guys are saying, like the menu system is 30 to 40% of the game. And here's like, and I'm not necessarily insulting that, like by design, because like we were in a load screen or whatever, we were in orbit, and if someone was watching a cutscene, and I realized like they built it to where you can go into the menus and mess with your
Hmm.
character and do whatever, and I was like, and you're absolutely right. There's like every 1 or 2 missions, maybe 3, you're back at the tower just to like manage the menus, right? You're really just going through trying to figure out what to break down and stuff. And I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. I didn't realize that in the past, but I think it's because they got all these new systems now that didn't exist. That now it's like, okay, there's a lot of curriculum here. But that being said, if for a game that has you like in the menus 30, 40% of the time, it's pretty fun to navigate them, and break stuff down and see all the little pop-ups.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely satisfying to an extent.
Yeah,
I
I
think it'll be
think the
fun.
frustrating part for me is um, the the transmog like system seems a little convoluted where it's like, okay, I like this specific gear, but now I've got to go out and farm like these like 4 or 5 different resources to then go and turn it into a different resource just to do any transmog where
Hmm.
and when you go into there's a certain section within the game where you can see all of the different gear that's available versus what you've achieved, and some of it you can spend glimmer or something to reobtain it. Other ones like it's randomized, so you can't buy that one. And it's just if you're actually trying to build a character with the specific aesthetic that you want, it can be a little overwhelming trying to figure out the proper way to do it and get what you want
Yeah.
if you even still can because some of that some of that gear is locked behind like different seasons of content that you can't get anymore. And it's not exactly clear how like what's available, what isn't, how to get what is available. And like I said, they're between just in the tower alone, like you've got Ikora's got her own set of stuff, uh, Shax, Zavala, the Drifter. There's a few other that are almost useless now at this point in the game. Where like the for the shipwright and everything, because they mainly only give like green gear. So there's a few that are redundant now, but there's so many different ones, and they all have their own currency system, and that's the overwhelming part for me, where it's so much to think about that it kind of pulls me out of the game a little bit. Even though, like we've said before, like the it's probably the best first person shooter gameplay wise that I've ever played.
We can there's definitely like if we commit to like getting good at like Gambit or Crucible, whenever we're like all together and we just kind of like have an activity, we can progress and just focus on one activity for a decent amount of time
Yeah,
and still at least until we can get up to like light level to be doing raids and whatnot and feel comfortable enough like inviting a fifth and sixth player to
yeah,
actually do some like bigger events. But I mean, I even enjoyed the Azure game type last night. That was
yeah.
a
It
lot
was
of fun.
fun.
It's a little like it's ridiculous, but it seems aware that it's ridiculous.
That was the most fun I think I had as we played. Yeah. And that
Yeah.
horse mess that horse got me, dude. I was like, the captions read, what enthusiastic and neighing.
Yeah.
I'm done. I don't know what to tell you after that.
Yeah, like Zer's this like mysterious, like cool character, and they gave him a goofy fucking horse.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
But
fun. I'm looking forward to playing more. It's just, I think the only thing that turns me off is like just trying to, I could already feel like the economy of time just getting imbalanced. Like I was like, how am I going to play other stuff? Because we got to play
hmm
this every chance we get to get anything of meaning. Um,
Yeah.
which it's fun too to play, but I think that's what got me out of it in the past was just being like, what do I have to show for playing this for 8 hours? Like
I
anything
think
but.
you can casually play it and get to
Mhm.
the soft cap. And once you get to the soft cap, you can at least start doing some harder things and doing like some of the like more in-game kind of activities. Because I mean, last night, I mean, how long have you guys played? You're already 700 light level, and you start at 16 or 1600. You're at 1700 now. I
Maybe
mean,
eight
how
or
many
10
hours do you think you did
hours.
that? And 1750 is the soft cap, and then I
What is
think
the soft cap?
1850 is like whenever you can start. Soft caps whenever the progression of your light levels substantially going to like get slower. So once you hit 1750, I'm pretty sure you can go to at least 1850. I know that your artifact you can level up and get you higher too, but like um 1850 was like some of the like hard versions of missions were all like 1850 light level. You probably want to be at least 1800 before you start like doing them. But I don't know. Like I think it caters a little bit more to a casual player than it used to because there's just so many activities you can go in and not like feel at a disadvantage. Like I mean, Gambit was just hard to just understand the game type and like, get in a good rhythm with it. But if we got good at it, like Gambit's pretty fucking fun. That's
Yeah.
probably my favorite activity. You just gotta be ready for, you know, whatever it's throwing at you and everyone
Yeah.
kind of have a role. But yeah, I don't know. I look forward to playing it even casually, like not trying to stress too much about it, but get around to it as much as we can and want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to make myself hate it because I've been through it. I've been through it.
Too many times.
Not doing it.
Yeah,
Not doing it again.
too many times.
Well, I think
Yeah.
another hurdle I've got is like even though I've been even though I've been dismantling for like infusion on the loadout I do have to increase the light level, I've been using the same loadout like at least for the last 2 or 3 years probably.
Yeah,
At least
same here.
in the various times I've got on, and there are so many different weapons that unless you're trying to follow the meta online, it's like there's almost too many weapons to actually try out and get a feel for.
Hmm.
But that's hard because I really like the loadout I have, but I don't know if it's certainly
It
not
doesn't seem
good
as good as
for
it used to be.
yeah, it's certainly not good enough for Crucible. I mean
Yeah.
the PvE stuff I still like it because I actually feel good using it, but PvP was not fun with it.
Yeah.
That'll be fun though. I look forward to picking up on it on the weekends or when we all have a day off or something. But
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think it's one I'll play every day. But I really do look
Yeah.
forward to getting the new content. They've added so much, and it's not hard to get some cool stuff now, or see something cool, or go to a new type of map or something. So, and I really like the art like of the game, the interface and stuff is just like no other game has like that quality of just it looks smooth. There's like zero bugs. I mean, from what that I've
Yeah.
experienced and stuff. So all that adds to the experience. And the story, I have no idea what's going on in the story, but I do know they had some cool imagery. Like I was like, this is fine. I don't even need to know what's happening. They got
I
some
like
cool
how far
cutscenes.
they've come to where we've got Cabal and Fallen in the tower as
Yeah.
like
It's
friends.
like what?
Yeah.
Like, oh, how far we've come, That's cool to see. Just playing Destiny from the beginning, and all those were just enemies, and now like there's a whole the all the different races coming together and working together is kind of neat. I like it.
Well, speaking of,
Wait,
like, what is your like of all the different factions and races and stuff? What's your favorite?
Fallen.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
like the Fallen a lot.
I like specifically like the House of Wolves and stuff. Like that was
Yeah,
probably some of my favorite content.
Yeah,
That was
I
like
love that.
original Destiny though.
hmm The Prison of Elders,
Yep.
all that stuff was so fun. Yeah.
I don't know the lore. Barely any of it.
The Hive are a close second. I like the Hive a lot, but Fallen just, I don't know. They just remind me of like, you remember, did either of you watch Solo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, at the towards the end, whenever they meet, there's like a group of like outlaws on that planet where they bring the coaxium and they're stuck there, and these people show up on as like locals. Kind of look like them. I don't know. They look like something out of Star Wars to me. So just something about it. It's cool.
Speaking of lore, would you say Barrett, that it's like some of your favorite lore? Like, how does it rank compared to like Star Wars or something like that?
Destiny's lore.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's your like? I just thought of this as we were talking. Like,
Mm,
what's some of your favorite lore in any property?
in any property.
Yeah. Think about chew on that one.
Oh man.
You
um,
too, Brandon.
I think with Destiny, one of my favorite parts of the lore is how something that was a glitch in the very beginning. I'm pretty sure y'all know what I'm going to talk about. In the very beginning, it was something that was hella exploited, and it became lore because of how the community first came together in Destiny 1, from the demo on to the loot cave.
Yep.
And they to this day, you can go to the loot cave on the Cosmodrome, and there's like a thing in there that you can communicate with, and it says like something about Master Raoul, like, I don't know, but just kind of loosely just acknowledging that something was special about that spot at one point. I like that it just something that made its way into the game, you know, all because it was a overexploited place to get legendary engrams whenever they were hard to get. I spent hours in front of that fucking cave, dude.
Me
Like,
too. We did. Just
and
firing them
what was
endlessly
fun
to.
about that, just taking all the fun out of the game, being like, well, this is the most efficient place. But that's the first thing that comes to mind as far as like favorite lore. I mean, I
Yeah.
like a lot. I can't really pick something specific out of Destiny right off the top of my head, but um, I mean, it's real. It definitely takes notes from a lot of my favorite properties, and especially Star Wars. I like, and I like how they utilize that. But um, I wasn't prepared for that question. I definitely have a
That's all
loaded
right.
answer, but I don't know. Brandon, what do you think? You have a favorite?
Um, I'm not really sure as far as like a favorite. I definitely probably swing back and forth more between Harry Potter or Pokemon, just because like those are the two worlds I'd like to live in the most.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as far as interesting, like I don't know, just from the amount of history that's involved, probably like something along the lines of like Marvel or something, just all the different characters that are available and all those different stories that people have written over time that I mean it goes back, almost 100 years at this point.
Yeah.
I like
I think.
Master Chief's coming up. His backstory. His
Mm,
backstory on as like from being picked as a child to his basic training to being augmented into a superhuman, like his whole coming up story is definitely up there. It'd be in my top 5 for like lore of something.
Dude, they had the
Like,
best commercials for Halo. I just got to throw that out there. You guys remember
Yeah.
any of those?
I remember like the Game Fuel commercials that they would promote that were always a lot of fun, but I can't think of anything specifically.
Oh, really? There was, Brandon, do you remember the one that was, I think it was just called like Believe or something, and I think it was for Halo 2, might have been for Halo 3, but if you haven't seen it, look it up. It's on YouTube, but it's basically like some really slow like Halo music playing like on piano, and there's all these like minifigs. It looks like Warhammer or something like that. Like all these little, it's this huge scene of this battle between the Covenant and humans, and it's just panning while the music plays and showing like these soldiers throwing grenades and like getting shot, and then them fighting the Covenant. So like there's no animation. It's literally just like a super detailed giant set of this fight.
Tabletop RPG.
Yeah, exactly. And then at the very end, it's got like just the battles coming together on like this on this hill, and whatever main enemy, Covenant enemy, Master Chief was fighting is like holding Master Chief by like the ruff of the neck, and then at the very end, he like just tilts his head up, like his helmet just moves up, and then like he presses the button on the grenade, and then it just like cuts to black and says "Believe." The commercial is like one of the best. Dude, it's so good. Yeah,
I do remember
but that's
that.
what made me. Most of the lore I know about Halo is probably from just like the different commercials and stuff, because they had like the best marketing. Like if you weren't getting hyped for Halo, it didn't even matter if you played it. That was some really good stuff that made me curious about like seeing a movie.
The only commercial from like around that time period that really stands out for me is probably like the Mad World commercial for Gears of War.
Gears, yeah,
Yeah.
dude, that was.
That, and I think the Battlefield like Bad Company.
I don't remember that one. I have to
I
look
played
that
the
up.
game, but I don't remember the commercial.
I've always liked the PlayStation commercials. They've been
They were
like they
always
border on.
weird at one point.
Dude, yeah,
Yeah.
They were so weird. I was gonna say like they were like alien, just like I don't know. They leaned into some sort of weird shit with the PS3, especially a lot of PS3's marketing.
Dude, yeah, you nailed it. The PS3 had the weirdest. It had that baby crying, and then didn't it get like thrown against a wall or something like that? It was something awesome. It was like black goo. I can't remember, but it was so. And then it was like the power of the cell. Somebody in the chat, also someone in the chat just said, like the Assassin's Creed lore.
Oh yes.
Playing off history, but I felt like after so many games, I got completely disinterested. Yeah, it's pretty easy to get disinterested when there's like 15 games and they come out before you beat the last 2 or 3. But that is some great lore.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And I think it may be, we may have talked about it before, but like that was always like the biggest part of that franchise that drew me in, was just how they included the Animus and going back in time, and how it actually tied in with like almost like a mix between fiction and nonfiction. And but yeah, once they started going a little more supernatural with things around the time they like the Origins soft reboot, like that's where it started to lose me lore wise.
Yeah, I like how the Animus was used, and it was like based on ancestry with Desmond. That something connected you because I felt more connected to the character that's going into the Animus, and like especially through Assassin's Creed 1 and the 2 trilogy, like that's where like the lore I felt like was the richest. I know there's a lot now. There's a whole lot with like what it dives into and all the different cultures it dives into, but that's like where Assassin's Creed just at one point it felt like something new and awesome and like fresh, looking at history with like assassins. Like you're seeing like the underworld of history, you know? And yeah, now like I mean, and it has always had that supernatural edge to it with like the Apple of Eden and
Yeah.
like it's had that, but it has leaned far too much in it. It was nice whenever it was like tastes, like just a little touch of something, a little weird, a little more paranormal, I guess. And
Yeah,
then
well, I mean that kind of stuff with like the Apple and everything. That was definitely more of a like a super like paranormal or like a higher power kind of thing.
yeah, or like
I guess where I go into like the supernatural aspect is when you start having weapons that are got different enchantments and stuff on them, like stuff like that.
coated with fire.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
anything
it
that
takes
kind of
a
broke the immersion. It felt like.
because the hand-to-hand
Yeah.
combat, I mean, it wasn't always the smoothest, but like it still made it feel more, I guess, immersive just because it wasn't overly flashy. It was believable,
Yeah,
you know, and it was a
Yeah.
cool new fighting style for a game too. And you've got fucking wrist blades, you know, and all the different ways you could like sneak up on people. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
I think
definitely.
they're great games. Like they're great games, and like the lore, I would say is probably still good. It would have just been
Yeah,
better if maybe we got one every 3 or 4 years. Because at
yeah,
this
I've been waiting
point,
on that.
yeah, you're not overloaded with all this lore. Because I think that's the main problem is if we got this much lore over the course of 30 years, it'd be one thing. But we got it over the course of like 10, 15 years over which is like, and somehow they put out 15 or 20 games, I want to say, in that time from spin-offs and games on every console and stuff.
Mhm.
So I think it's just an overload. This is overly saturated with it to where it's just, you're more dreading it than looking forward to it, you know?
yeah,
It got real hard whenever they started with like Unity and uh, Rogue, ones that were all on
Mm-hmm.
intentionally on different consoles and
Yeah.
stuff. And you're like, wow, I don't have like the little mini games and stuff too that they made, like the side scrollers and stuff. Like they, especially, it all kind of happened at once. And then Syndicate came out real quick. And as
Mm-hmm.
soon as, because like after Black Flag, I felt like it just got so saturated. They were
yeah,
so like we'd moved on to a new console and they were like, well, we're still going to put one specifically on the Xbox 360 and PS3 that's like specific to that console. Remember that? And it's like, well, everyone's
Yep.
upgraded. Like, what the hell?
Yep.
Why not also make it available? And now I know, I'm sure it is, but for a while it wasn't. And it was just, I don't know. It felt like they
That's too
were
much.
just making something to have something on everything, and it took away from the flow of like the story and like wanting to be caught up with it.
Well, you got to be able to miss it, right? You
Yeah.
know, like that's the thing. Like I would argue that probably most of our favorite game series, Destiny notwithstanding, because that's like a seasonal game, right? You know, you're always getting some updated version, but that's a whole other conversation. But a lot of like my favorite games, like let's say Legend of Zelda or something, you don't get one but every 5 or 6 years, so you're
Yeah.
always ready to jump in and devour it. And if you didn't finish the last one, you know, it's not because you weren't interested or whatever. It's just other stuff came out. But with Assassin's Creed, it's like, okay, there's other games I want to play. So, you know, I can't be keeping up with this series, you know, because every game's coming out and each one's 200 hours long and you're not really
Yeah.
getting a different
yeah.
experience. But hey, looking at the chat, I'm going to change the subject a little bit from Brandy. I think to me, these take the cake, right? Bloodborne and Elden Ring. I mean, to me, it's any of the From Software games like, and we could argue if it's the lore is good or delivered in a good way, but Bloodborne to me just
Bloodborne. Yeah.
gets
I couldn't
it's
recite
in
any
your
of it,
oh
but when I'm
yeah.
living in it, it's my favorite thing of all time. Such a good game.
It has one of my favorite quotes, and I'm not going to try to reference it, but I'll bring it up in a future episode or something. It has like one of my favorite quotes, like one I'd want to get tattooed on me.
Hmm.
That's like from a weapon or something like that. But yeah, Bloodborne. Yeah, the only reason
Hmm.
I would say Elden Ring instead is probably just because Elden Ring's more accessible to me now, and Bloodborne needs an update, you know, just to jump back into it. But what do you? Let me ask
Bloodborne
you.
2.
Yeah, I wish. And Brandon, did you play Bloodborne? I was
Um,
curious.
not much of it.
See, that's one where you can just go on YouTube and like there's some videos we watch that just go over the lore. Like they just
Yeah.
talk about all the lore and like that's what actually made me love the lore because I didn't understand any of what was happening
Well, I
ever.
mean, I think that's been the one weak point to a lot of the From Software games is the lore is very interesting. It's just you really have to seek it out if you want to know any of it.
Yeah,
And especially
which is
with something
cool.
like Elden Ring
I like that.
where it's not as structured or focused, like
Yeah.
that being that open world aspect, you really have to search for it if you want to know anything.
Mm.
That's a great point. Like, and I would say if like every game did the storytelling that way, it would become a problem to me, right? And it's like, okay, I'm tired of having to go and research every one of these games, but like it just works for those games specifically for me because nobody else really does it that way. You know,
Yeah.
everybody like we were playing Destiny, it was like, okay, you get a 2 or 3 minute cutscene that's very cinematic and narrative driven and you're not having to interpret the story much. And that's great. But it's just Elden Ring and Bloodborne is just so different. You know, you do have to work for it, and but it's so good that it actually pays off. But yeah, I could rant on how good Bloodborne and all that is. I was gonna say when we were talking about this lore in general, I'd say Elden Ring to me, like I think I've told you this, but like Elden Ring to me is like the Lord of the Rings of our time. Like there's so much in there and so much history that's already happened when you get there. Like that's a really cool thing. All the biggest events that ever happened in the world in those games have already happened. And you're just there like in the aftermath of it. And I think
Post.
that's just so cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like the world's already been devastated. Like you're
basically
literally
Middle Earth.
walking through. Yeah, exactly. Like
It's like in the third age, because whenever Lord of the Rings times is basically after everything. It's the end. I mean, there's stuff that goes on, but like that is I didn't
it's
realize that
history
about
though.
Elden Ring. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, that's not like just for example, like you'll be riding through one area and you can see like there was a battle there, but like the
Hmm.
weapons that are still there, you may like they're like just totally worn down and decrepit. You can tell this battle probably happened 400 or 500 years ago or something for all you know. And there's just tons of stuff like that in the game. Um, but yeah, I love that. But like you said, like I couldn't if they were pumping out a game every year or
No.
there were games like that every year, I would just be so over it. Like, but they don't do it that way. So
Well,
yeah,
and their gameplay helps with that too because I mean, I'm guilty to an extent where just the difficulty and the challenge of it is a reason to play, and I know so many people that only play for that reason. At least as far as those games go. But and like I said, I'm guilty myself. But yeah, if everything was like that, I don't think it would work. So in that sense, it does allow them to stand out, and I think to some degree because they have built their reputation on how good the gameplay is. They can kind of open that door to say, well, if you want to know more, it's all here. And so at that point, it like kind of gives you the option to how invested you want to be.
yeah, I think you kind of nailed it because like there's bosses in the game where they don't tell you anything. Like you're going through an area and then all of a sudden you're fighting this boss, but the design of them is so intricate and they look like they've been through so much that you're like, they've got a cool story to them. Like you can leave it there and not go forward any further than that, or you can go and try to figure out by reading all these descriptions of their weapon that you get or something, or these, whatever lore you can find in the world that's going to tell you what their story is and why you were even fighting them in the first place. But I love that if you don't want to do that, then you just get straight to the gameplay and you can just fight them and they're just a cool boss,
Yeah.
So though, but on the other hand, sometimes I do wish they would just do a 2 or 3 minute cutscene and tell you what some things are. So I do get annoyed every once in a while where I'm just like, I don't even know. This boss is calling me names that I've never heard, acting like I did something to somebody I've never met and mad at me about it. Like I really wish there'd been some fill me in. Give me a couple like hints about why I'm here and what happened to you, you know?
Elden Ring could use like a cinematic mode for
Mm,
people that want a more immersive story, like, and it doesn't take away from the gameplay, and just give a
mm-hmm.
cinematic mode where you get cutscenes like that,
Mm,
like, and like you don't mind your game kind of being interrupted by like something cinematic or a little short cutscene, just to add more immersion to it. I don't know if that would take away, but it seems like something they could use because like I really like Elden Ring. I like the aesthetic to it, I guess, and it did feel a lot like Lord of the Rings meets Legend of Zelda to me.
hmm.
Like,
Yeah, definitely. Just an awesome
um,
mix.
yeah, just super awesome mix, and but something that's hard for me to do just because of like my ADHD in games is like try and read every little thing or what. I'm like, I wish I could remember the name of the boss that I got stuck on and quit in that game. And I think I quit after I beat him. Like I beat him and I was like, okay, I'm gonna end on a win. I'm done for a while. And I put it down for a while. But um, and I think I had to use like a summon to help me beat him finally. I finally just like gave in. It's like fuck it. But
Yeah.
um, like if that game put a little bit more lore in front of me, I think I would like it a little bit better. But also, I respect that it's just a game that's like, yeah, if you want it, you can find it, but you gotta look for it.
Oh, that's actually a really cool idea. I never thought of them doing that. Like if someone had just said, "Hey, let's put more cutscenes in the game, like Final Fantasy or something," I would have been like, "Ah, no, that's not what it is." But like the way you described it, actually be really cool. It actually makes me think of like Breath of the Wild, where you could find the memories,
Yeah.
right? And you could find these pieces of story and cutscenes and then watch them in any order, and they would give you context and stuff and stories,
Hmm.
the world. I'd be totally down for that in a From Software type game, where you can, the context is limited, but if you go seek it out, you get these narrative set pieces that you can watch. I think that would be awesome. I actually now I'm
Especially
hoping they do something like that.
like how Final Fantasy games, like especially older Final Fantasy games, when you've got all this like, slow gameplay in the middle, and then you finally get to that cutscene, and it's like, I don't know, it's like a milestone. That'd be cool if you could seek them out, like the memories and Breath of the Wild. Definitely into more of that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say
You guys want
another lore thing real quick. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Uh, Rapture
Oh God.
and how Walt Disney basically created it. Like,
Yes. Howard
uh,
Hughes / Walt Disney. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh God.
And just like all the symbolism behind that whole game, especially, I mean, BioShock one and two with Rapture and all the context that it gives to like how it was created and how it failed. Just, well, that was really cool.
Yeah, I could talk about. Has everybody here played BioShock?
I played the first one.
Okay, that's in
Good
a lot of
enough.
ways that's the best one. The intro going into the city and that submersible still to this day just
Yeah.
now I
Hmm.
want to go play that. It's on the newer consoles and everything. So
Hmm. I love how
yeah,
accessible it is
BioShock.
now.
Yeah, BioShock has got some of my favorite and some of the best lore and storytelling. Yeah. Like I don't as one of the just media period, books, movies, whatever. I would say to me has like been one of the most captivating game worlds that like
Hmm.
ever seen. Super immersive and scary and weird and awesome.
Quite literally immersive.
Yeah, submersive.
Submersive.
Yeah,
Yeah, that game is great.
yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, I got a couple things I was thinking of we could talk about, but also like what are some topics, ideas, thoughts you guys have on your minds, if any, that you wanted to chat about?
Well, as far as like current, I know the Avatar: The Last Airbender trailer dropped today. Um, I was
It's for the
Very happy with it.
Netflix show, correct?
And for the next, yes, for the first season of the Netflix show, from all the extra like articles I've read, they've referred to it as a season. So like, it's not going to be like a one season. Like, you know, I'm glad that they're not trying to like one shot anything, you know. But now I watched the trailer and then I listened to like a breakdown from the showrunner and someone else that worked on the movie, and they just talked about like each scene frame by frame basically, and I'm excited. That little ender for it when he's going into the avatar state got me a little verklempt. I was like, oh, this show is it's gonna be heavy. It's gonna have all the right emotions, all the right, like, I don't know, the fact that they're going all in on all the like kung fu kind of moves, and each element is gonna have its own fighting style, and it seems like they're really pouring a lot into it. I don't know if you guys saw it,
No,
but
I didn't.
looks great.
Now, well, before I say if I saw it or not, like I didn't watch the cartoon. Brandon, did you watch the cartoon like religiously?
I've seen like half of the first season, but I really, really enjoyed it. What I have seen.
Enough.
No, I think I didn't watch the show until like the final season premiered. I thought it was great. I thought it was really good. I didn't finish it though. I watched maybe the first season. But yeah, I think it looks really good. I'm more happy to hear that Barrett, it sounds like you're a fan, right? Obviously of the show. I'm more
I've
happy
never
that you're.
seen the second series that followed it, but I've seen all of Last Airbender at least twice, all the way through.
Nice.
And no, I do like it a lot. It's created by the same guy that worked on the Clone Wars. He went from Avatar, The Last Airbender, to Clone Wars, and then on to all the Star Wars projects. So it's got a lot of that heart to it, and I don't know, really good show. Even still holds up. Great show, even though it's animated. Sometimes it's hard to get past if you're not a super big fan of animation. But like that show, as far as the narrative that it goes along with, and like, I don't know, just a really, really good time the whole way through.
I think
But it looks like.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say it looks like the show is paying every bit of respect to it and trying to, like, you know, do it right, rather than I don't know if y'all know, there's a movie that came out that
Yeah,
if you know anything about it, you probably know it's bad.
Still not as bad as Dragon Ball
the
Evolution.
I was about to say it's like the Dragon Ball for Avatar
It's not
fans.
quite that
It is
bad,
Dragon
but
Ball
yeah.
Evolution.
It's not that bad.
I don't know,
Yeah.
man.
Dude,
It's in the same field.
Well, as someone who didn't watch Dragon Ball either, but judging the old Avatar movie and the Dragon Ball movie was far worse, I thought, than the Avatar movie.
Yeah.
But no, I'm glad. You know, I didn't like the Avatar movie, the old one, but I didn't hate it in the way that fans of the show did. Like Brandy, my wife, had to explain it to me, like why it was so bad. And it was like, oh, I was a whole other dimension of discomfort that I didn't even have to experience because I didn't watch the animated show. But that being said, I think I did watch the trailer for the new show. I think the casting looks awesome. Like they look so much like the characters. They even sound like the characters. Like, which I thought was tripping me out. I was like, you sure you didn't get AI to like make that dude? Because it literally looks like someone fed a picture, animated picture, and said, "Make this real," and he showed up. I was like,
Yeah,
"Good
it's
job."
AI,
I was
bro.
like, "What did he find?" Yeah, dude. Special effects looked awesome. So like, I think it looks like they're doing all the things right in a way that'll make the fans happy, and that gives me hope. And I'm not going to like change the subject, but I'll say they're working on a BioShock movie at Netflix. So like,
I've heard about that for a long time.
Yeah, so it just gives me hope that they'll continue executing really well. But I thought, it looks really good. I think they're doing it right. It looks like it's a really expensive show though. Like with the special effects, they look like movie quality. So hopefully it does really well, because if it doesn't, they won't get another season. So hopefully a lot of
Yeah.
people do watch it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
But yeah,
definitely seems they're like on the upswing compared to, like, from what I understood, the One Piece live action was done really well, but
Hmm.
stuff that came before that, not so much. I mean, I love the Cowboy Bebop anime, but the
yeah.
show wasn't very well received. At least the live action show. And then I know Death Note is kind of hit or miss depending on which one you've watched first. I'll say that. There's a lot of those adaptations like that where, I guess it's
Yeah.
depending on if you watch the source material or not, or if you read the source material. Like it just depends on where you started at.
The thing with anime adaptations is just that anime is already such a art form and over the top, and it's supposed to be like that because it's the culture. It doesn't feel like it translates well at all to any sort of
No,
live action. Like, but I'm sure also heard great things about One Piece. So, I mean, I've got one friend at work that it encouraged, like, he watched the live action show and it made him want to watch the animated show that he had never seen. So he's like all in on it now because of the live action, which is kind of neat that it, you know, at least did that for somebody. But even big fans of the show that I know are like, yeah, the live action's fantastic. As long as they keep that, like, and it's just keeping the heart of things and not trying to make it something that it's not, but also, making like responsible changes too to keep it fresh and new. And I'm sure it's a hard line to walk, but I mean, I feel like The Witcher did it well for its first season at least, and get like made left you wanting more of it. I know it's kind of trailed off. Like, seems like things like that are getting the hang of it, and I'm hoping that Avatar is like just an all out banger, like it needs to be, because that show deserves a highlight for sure, and something to present it to a new audience, and what's already a really good story. Like, I'm glad they're not adding too much, but they are adding more depth to certain scenes from the show and certain lore from the show. They're gonna like elaborate on things more, and it's just cool that like it's a group of people. It's kind of like how I felt like Hogwarts Legacy. Like, it seems like the people that worked on that absolutely loved that entire universe and did everything they could to pour their hearts into it. And it seems like the people that are working on Avatar are doing a lot of the same thing. So it's got me excited. Got me a little worked up while I was working today.
I think for me with Avatar, like I said, from what I have seen of it, I really like it, but I think I missed out just due to timing, because I think it was like what, mid 2000s that it debuted, like 2005, 2006, somewhere around there.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Like most of the animated stuff like that I watched when I was younger was like late mid to late 90s stuff. So
Hmm.
like mostly like the Marvel shows like Spider-Man, the X-Men animated show, which I don't know where y'all fall on it, or if you're even aware of it, but it's probably got like the best theme song of like any animated show.
And
X-Men, yes.
oh yeah, dude. If you have it's the best. Yeah, it's like the best opening song. Have you
Something I
not
might
heard this,
remember if
Barrett?
I heard it. I just
Yeah,
don't
if you
remember it
heard
off
You
it,
the top
probably
of my
would then.
head. I have an
sounds like
interesting
awesome.
relationship with like superhero stuff and how I got into it, and I don't. I wasn't ever like super big on a lot of the shows. I didn't have the patience to watch a lot of the shows unless it was like the only thing on. You're surfing through all the channels, and all one of them's at least got Spider-Man on, so, or Batman Beyond's on. You know,
I,
like,
I
it wasn't a first choice for me, unfortunately. It was more of a like well, it's the only thing on, but I couldn't keep up with superheroes. And a lot of my knowledge for a lot of superheroes, if it didn't come like post Marvel um, cinematic universe, is like Wikipedia. Like if I liked somebody or was interested in them, I would just go through their wiki and learn how they connect to different characters and all that stuff. But like, yeah, so like I probably know the X-Men song, or I've heard it at some point, but I don't remember it.
I could bring up a sample. It's awesome. Well, what was your point though about about X-Men, Brandon? It wasn't just the theme song, I don't think, was it?
I mean, it was just like the show itself, just kind of from the artwork, the different stylistic choices they used in that show, like it just encapsulated the '90s for me, and
Yes.
so it'll always have a special spot in my heart. Like, and I'm glad that's like that's probably my favorite thing about Disney Plus is like all the old Marvel animation that's been added. It's like one of my favorite things to like go to sleep to every night.
That's cool.
Y'all hear this?
No.
Well, the headset's doing its job too
Hey,
well.
I was about to say that headset's doing a great job.
Yeah, wow. It was like, nope, that's not a person. Well, I'll send it to you later. Barrett, you'd recognize it definitely. Dude, Brandon, I completely agree with you though. Like X-Men and like the Spider-Man animated show, yeah, to me those are like peak 90s
Yeah.
awesomeness. Like just so deep into those. Same with the Batman cartoon too.
And then like late '90s, like the Pokemon anime coming in. Like I've probably
That's
seen every episode of that first season 100 times. Like,
So I feel like this
that's
is
where
a great pivot.
90% of my attention was Pokemon. For a long time, it was nothing but Pokemon.
I mean, that theme song too. It's right up there. Like it's one of those
It's
like
still a banger.
never gets old. Never gets old.
Never gets old. No, like, dude, I remember like Ollie really liking it at one point. She's always like really taken to music and showing her Pokemon songs. And whenever she would get so excited every time that song came on, dude, I'll just fucking cry. Like it just hurts. It wrenches my heart in a certain way that's like, because that song is like, I don't know. If I had a life soundtrack, it's probably track number one.
Yeah.
So we all shared like the psychotic desire for the Pokemon world to be real. Is that like growing up? So I never really got into the cards collecting, but the games definitely. But the show, I was like, if I had one wish for how the world could be when I was like 8 or 9 years old, I was like, absolutely Pokemon. Like it just seemed like exactly when I leave home when you're 8 or 9 and
Yeah.
everything's going to be fine. You're going to go capture monsters and be like, and that just seemed like peak, just perfection. Yeah, I don't know why. Looking back, I'm like, not sure why that was like the perfect world, but
Brandon said it earlier about like the two favorite worlds being the Harry Potter world and Pokemon.
right.
And if you could live in one of those, like I'm right there with you, dude. Like growing up from probably like 6, 7, 8 years old with Pokemon and 9 on with Harry Potter, like that was those two, like being able to cast spells or Star Wars use the Force and pull something to you, like. But with Pokemon, if they were fucking real, dude, I was convinced that at one point, whenever I was younger, that they would be one day. Like one day we're gonna have like
It might be. Hey, you don't know.
maybe it's gonna be more like Pal World though, where we're
Oh yeah,
beating the
let's
shit
talk
out of
about
them,
that.
and you know,
Power World game, dude. I don't even. Let's talk about this emotional baggage. Power World, holy crap. Y'all
making my
have thoughts on
Pokemon
that?
look bad, man. My Pokemon people are mad.
What the hell? What is? I'm like,
So
there's like
stupid.
conspiracy. Dude, there's like conspiracy level stuff about talk about that game where I'm just like, this is like when TikTok started. Like all of a sudden, there was a billion ads for it a day. Everybody was doing it, and it was like, where did this even come from? So yeah, I don't. I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts, and then
I've been following development on it for a little while, and
Yeah.
the
Why?
initial trailer like looked really cool, but it also was really absurd. Just but because we are so familiar with Pokemon at this point, and then it's really jarring to see in like the initial trailer they released where you're running around with guns, shooting the Pokemon, like being able to give the Pokemon
Beat the
weapons
hell
in
out of
order to
them.
shoot other people, or essentially making them slaves to like farm and mine stuff for you. Like it was
You can
just
catch people.
yeah, and like I played a lot of art when it first came out, so I was already familiar with the game type itself, and that's literally what it feels like. It's Ark and Pokemon together. But
Hmm. In Fortnite, it looks like the running around looks like Fortnite to me.
yeah, a little
You
bit.
look like your character model and stuff.
And
That
I
looks
saw
fun,
there's a
y'all.
Pokemon you can pick up that's a fox, and you can pick him up, and he's a flamethrower. You can just like burn
yeah,
everything with him. Like,
yeah,
Oh, you
it's
can
really
do that?
crazy.
yeah, like so you can interact with some of them and like use the Pokemon as a weapon, or like get on its back, and then you can control its moves. Um, it's wild, man. But like I hope that it gets. It seems like it's getting such a response. This is my like takeaway from this game because I'm not
Hmm.
gonna get to play it for a very long time. But like I hope that it lights a fire for Nintendo to do something more. I don't think it will. This is just a
Yeah,
hopeful.
I'm with you. I don't think
But
it
They might
will.
add
with
guns.
like how the popularity, the instant popularity, like Brandon said, it's been in development for a while. I've seen shit about it for a while. Like I've seen the headlines, Pokemon with guns, and like the cover of the game multiple times. And then now it's finally out and it's an immediate success. With over the weekend, it had 1 million concurrent players at one time, which and sold 5 million copies in the first weekend. Like,
Yeah, it's. I
Crazy.
think it's like.
I,
Those are
I
big
mean,
numbers, man.
I think
big
What is it?
numbers.
It's broken the record for like Steam, like the most players
Yeah,
on Steam at once. Um,
and that's crazy.
but I mean, based on a lot of what I've seen, it may be short lived because I've seen too much evidence at this point that a lot of the models for the creatures in the game are like
Really
you
close.
could take the 3D models from Pokemon and they line up almost exact.
I think they could probably change some of the properties though and alter things if they needed to.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You know what I
Take about
mean?
5 minutes,
It's
right?
seemed yeah, because like I mean, there's definitely Pokemon that look like you just put two Pokemon through a fusion and it made
yeah.
like a
But there's
Pansage and a Cinderace.
there are specific Pokemon like like a Lycanroc, um, a Salandit, a few others where like if you take the CAD like the actual 3D models, like head shapes, body sizes, everything is almost exact. And I was reading an
Mm,
article today where they there was a developer. I don't think it was from that game, but there was a developer talking about how you know they when they hire designers for stuff like that, they might have like a set list of like certain textures or objects, 3D objects like within their creation suite, and a lot of the objects that are similar, so you kind of expect something like that where you might have something where people come up with the same design, but
mm,
it was more so along the lines of you hire 30 designers and he's never seen anything come this close to how identical some of the characters look. And I think it wouldn't stand out as much if the because I do think from like a art design perspective, the design of the creatures and the world itself clashes a little bit because the characters do have like that animated cartoon look that Pokemon has, and like the
Hmm.
rest of the world has a more realistic setting. And so I think
Yeah.
they probably would have got away with it more if that was a little more blended. But I think it stands out a little too much to where it's just like, okay, like we just threw all these assets together and got a game out of it. And I know people are having fun with it, but I'm not sure that it's actually going to cause Nintendo to make any changes. Because I mean, at
Yeah.
the core of the game, fundamentally it's different than what Pokemon is. So that catching the creatures and using them to battle is probably the one similarity they have as far as the gameplay goes. So I
I
don't
just
know
really
that
want
it's
to give
gonna.
Pikachu an AK-47 and go ham on some people, dude.
It'd be kind of cool if Nintendo doesn't do anything about it, but then just copies some of the better ideas and makes a better Pokemon.
Yeah, that's what I want. That probably won't
Yeah.
happen. But like, I know people have already modded the game to have Pokemon in it. Like, there's Pokemon mod for it that Nintendo's apparently either
Yeah,
already gotten
they
a
have.
hold of, or okay. I saw that there was one and Nintendo was upset about it, but I didn't see what came of it.
Well, the specific creator of the mod, he had like posted on Twitter about it, and then within like a few hours, like he put up another tweet like, "Already been contacted by Nintendo. Please keep me in your prayers that I'll live throughout
Oh
the
no.
next 24 hours."
Man,
Oh my
that's
God.
just crazy.
Sending the Nintendo Secret Service to his house
Yeah. The
to
legal
deface their
sorry,
ambassador.
Nintendo Mafia. Good Lord. Yeah,
Jesus.
I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't look particularly appealing to me. I like all the ideas y'all said about, could inspire this or that or whatever, but I don't know. I don't think I'll ever play it unless I had some kind of multiplayer and you guys are on it. I just don't see. I
And it's
don't. When I look at
multiplayer.
it, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like
Wow. Well, heck. I mean,
it
if you
just
guys play it and say it's fun, I'd give it a shot. But just at first glance, I'm just like, I don't see
Well,
it.
right now it's only on PC and Xbox, so
Yeah.
with
I
no
heard that. I
plans
heard
on
people
the
are like
PS5.
crying out for it to be on PlayStation. There's no plans.
Right, not right now. They said that I think it's a Game Pass deal right now.
yeah, it's still in
And
game preview.
so while
Oh,
it's in
really?
Game Pass and Game Preview, I mean, Xbox probably has a deal with them that
Oh, yeah. Sure.
PlayStation's not going to be able to do anything about for probably at least a year is what things I saw. I don't know how credible, but
Yeah.
I'm not counting on getting it anytime soon. So I'll live, but it's all a few people at work are talking about, and a couple of the people I follow on YouTube are talking about it, and
Like I said, judging
it
based
looks.
on the evidence I've seen, I don't think it's gonna exist that long.
It'll be. I'll
That'd
look
be
forward to watching
crazy.
the fight.
Like the
Yeah,
only way I think they could possibly get around it is if they claim parody in some way, but
they should be able to.
but it
Like,
looks
what about
like
all
the
the people that
assets are
bought it?
reused. It looks like the
Will the
assets are
company have
re.
to reimburse everyone?
Well, there's already precedent this year of that happening with I think it was like one day later or one day before or something like that.
Oh, the date. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it was like an open world survival game, kind of like DayZ or something. And it was literally,
It's so bad.
it's been hyped up, for a couple of years now. Um,
Well,
well, it finally released, and literally every asset that's in the game, like you could buy off a website somewhere, and it looks like they just threw it in the game. There's nothing you can really actually do in it, and yeah, it was so bad that it was probably less than a week, if not that long. Like the company come out and said like they were shutting down because of all the
all that.
negative press they got over it. And so like
Jesus.
I think Steam did it on their own, like they took it down and then forced them to give uh, refunds out. which was funny. Like as of because that was like back at the beginning of the month. Maybe it might have been December, but I think it was maybe beginning of January. And like I said, they completely wiped it off of Steam. And as of this morning, there was still one player that was online on their servers because he just hadn't ever closed the game down. And like that was the only way that it was still working. But I think I think that's changed now. But yeah,
That's funny.
so there's already precedent this year of something like that getting shut down. So I wouldn't be surprised. But they have
That's
made
a
a lot of money from it.
big shutdown.
Yeah,
Like they've made so much money. I was thinking, I was like, what's $60 times 5 million copies? Like, think about like they instant success, and then all of a sudden, like, yeah, well, the Pokemon Lord said we couldn't do it, so you know,
I,
because
I'm
it's
not I'm not trying
I
to
think
say
it's
it's
as much a few other games as it is Pokemon. I know like a lot of the models are really what the problem are, but like there's some that like I mean it should be like you said like at least a parody because like I know there's like a Pokemon that looks like an Ampharos with like a flower on its head.
yeah.
Like I mean it's pretty fucking close, but it's not an Ampharos.
Yeah.
Any Pokemon nerd will tell you that. They might get mad about it because their Ampharos can hold a gun and yours can't, but
Yeah, I'll have to send you a video later, but yeah, it's like I said,
mm,
that seems to be the real legal issue is that they use like the exact models, like 3D models pulled from the code file. So,
mm,
um, so yeah, if they just if it was all their own creation and just said, "Hey, yeah, we're doing this as a parody," they'd probably get away with it, but a lot of it looks like it's the actual files from the game. So I'm
well,
curious how
play it
that's
while you
going to
can.
play out. Yeah, pretty much.
The next PT.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, go offline.
Yes, sell the whole the whole hard drive with it on their SSD with it
I
on
think it
there.
plays on a server too. It plays on servers,
Mm,
so I mean, once it shuts
yeah,
down, it's just going to be a menu
not
that says we're
nothing.
sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
We'll see what happens. I mean, best case scenario, they probably just end up paying a fat fine to Nintendo, and then they have to update the character models, or
Yeah,
create entirely brand new ones. But yeah, that'll make some headlines if it happens.
just keep it in the
yeah.
headlines, And
So, what are some other things you guys have seen or had on your minds?
Well, I know, like I said, I know I talked about, the things I watched back in the late '90s growing up. I'm
Hmm.
curious to know what y'all got into or what y'all were interested in
Hmm. I'll
or
chew on
or
that one for a
weren't
second.
interested in that everybody else was.
I mean, like I said, I was really into Pokemon. That shit took over. Um, every in all angles, any way I could get it, from a Game Boy Color to I couldn't tell you where it started. I don't remember what it started. I remember getting my Game Boy though from Kmart, and somewhere along the lines, I remember watching Pokemon getting ready for school at 6 o'clock in the morning. It was always on at 6 a.m. Um, so like definitely that. Um, I watched like bits and pieces of other shows, but there was nothing that I like super got into that I held on to as far as like other than like Pokemon, and then eventually bleeding into like Toonami stuff. Like the Toonami era, I'm like really nostalgic about. But like I know there's a lot of stuff that you're into that like I know I liked in passing, but I didn't. Nothing ever held. Like I mean, if I asked my mom, I bet she would say that I loved Power Rangers. But
Oh, I love
there
Power
was a
Rangers.
dude like I had a bunch of toys and was really into it, but it was definitely like a phase that like I phased out of and didn't look back too much. I think what happened was the first I liked Power Rangers a lot, and then they put out that first fucking movie with the purple lady and the gooey shit.
Yeah.
I don't like something about that movie made me sick, and
Man,
I
I
didn't
love
like
that
it.
movie. I love it. I still watch it.
And I think I don't know if it's directly connected to that, but something about that movie makes me sick to my fucking stomach, and I quit watching.
Dude,
I
I,
think.
I, I love
Huh.
that movie, and mainly because of the costumes. Like the suits that are in that first movie versus the suits that they use for the TV show. It was like
Hmm.
next level, and nothing ever looked
Yeah.
that good again. I don't know what it was.
The
Yeah.
budget was big for the movie,
Well, that's
at least for
mostly
costume.
because that I don't know if either of y'all know, but um, so Power Rangers originally was adapted from like Super Sentai in Japan,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
so the only thing that was actually shot new for the American show for Power Rangers were anytime they were outside of their suit. But like so all the scenes of them in action with their suits on were all pulled directly from the Japanese show. And they were probably about so that first season of Power Rangers was actually about the 12th or 13th season of Super Sentai. So there was already like years of content that they like skipped over and adapted just that one section.
That's crazy. I did not know that.
Yeah. So that's why I like I think so in the show obviously the original like pink and yellow rangers are female, but I think in Super Sentai only the pink one was. I think the yellow one was actually male, which is why the pink one like has a skirt but the yellow one doesn't for that time period. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's totally different scenes with like them out of their suits,
Yeah.
and then yeah, like noticeable scene changes there. Thinking back on it, but I wouldn't have thought that it was like cut.
No.
That's great because all that they
And
wouldn't have to. It's a perfect model because all they got to do is just dub voices over it.
yeah. A little trivia fact. I don't know if either of y'all watch Breaking Bad or fans of Bryan Cranston, but
But yeah.
the Blue Ranger, which is my favorite, his name in the show was Billy Cranston, and he was named his last name Cranston was a reference to Bryan Cranston because he did a lot of the voices for I guess some of the like special effects and stuff at the time.
Mm, that's cool.
But yeah,
Shit.
Blue Ranger was my favorite. I don't ever really know why, but I remember I had at the time it was life size because as like a 6 or 7 year old, I had like this like mannequin of the Blue Ranger, and I would always fight with it out in the front yard. And like one of my core memories is I had to have surgery when I was a kid for something. Like the specific thing, like one of the doctors told me was I couldn't like wrestle with it. It was just I don't know why that's such a core memory, but it's just always stuck with me. I don't know why.
Oh damn. A favorite Ranger for me was a red one. Like I do remember that. I remember I had a bunch of like Red Ranger toys at one point. Now I need to like talk to my parents more about that, like what shows I watched at a certain point, because I feel like I've got like some sort of block. Curtain went at one point, and certain things are just like blocked out. I don't know why, what trauma I went through, but there's
Dude,
definitely like,
I was definitely going to say something similar. Like I was going to ask both of you like how well you thought your memory was from anything in your childhood because I definitely don't have anything like overly traumatic that happened, but like I said, like instances like from that surgery, I've got like almost like a photographic memory of like certain things that happen. But like overall, I feel like my memory is horrible unless there's like
Mm,
something that triggers it
yeah.
to make me remember it. But like
Is
if
it
you
like
were
a
to ask
photo
me to
album that like fell and got mixed up and you
yeah,
maybe didn't pick up all the pictures
yeah.
and put them back in a totally different order too?
And I don't know what it was that what caused that, but
How it is for me.
Yeah, I think, gosh, I feel like I remember or have memories of most things from like the time I was 4 or 5 onward. And I know I remember a lot of it. Like there's really no gaps that I feel are there. But the thing is with time I've realized that like I'm not remembering it correctly,
yeah,
right? Like I didn't
Mm,
have enough context of like what was happening around me or awareness, just my senses and stuff when you're 5, 4 or 5, like what things mean, all that. Like so when I look back and I feel like something happened a certain way, I've started realizing like just recently that I'm like, you know what? It probably didn't happen whatever way I feel like it did. Not that someone didn't do something or say something, but like if I was to probably watch it back, like recorded, like literally recorded, I'd be like, oh, that's a lot different than how it felt,
mm-hmm.
in the moment and stuff. So yeah, I have like a lot of doubts about that. But yeah, and it's kind of a problem to remember it, right? Because you remember it wrong, right? So like you end
Mm-hmm.
up being and not only that but you've remembered it so many times that it's really just like the memory of a memory of a memory at that point, and it
Just
just
remembering
loses.
yourself talking about it at this point.
Yeah, you've lost all the quality that the memory originally had, because it's so far away, but you still have, you're right, exactly, Barrett, like it's like but you remember the story of what it
Mm-hmm.
was now but not the actual images in your head and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of my experience with it,
Kind of like
if that
Brandon said, like
answers
I've
your
got like
question.
photographic moments, but it's like
Mhm.
bits and pieces up to a certain extent. I will say like funny bit of like my history with like shows that I grew up watching. Dragon Ball Z, I got into through like Toonami and the afternoon cartoons and all that shit. And I remember watching it I'd always watched it in like fourth and fifth grade. I stayed after school. It was a YMCA program where like I stayed in the cafeteria after school until like 6 o'clock. My parents would come pick me up. And I would always watch Dragon Ball Z with one of the counselors there was also really into Dragon Ball Z. His name was Rodney. He's a really good guy. And he like he helped my like uh, curiosity for the show, and I think he'd watched it more than me, so he'd like fill in stuff for me, and like he like because I mean the show had been going on for years at this point already, and um, so I end up really liking the show, and I'm watching it at my mom's house, and my stepdad didn't give a shit. I'd watch it at my dad's house, which he's real big into church, and um, stepmom was really like a reserved kind of person, and it's a different household for sure. And I go over there watching Dragon Ball Z, and he was like, "You can't watch this," and like was hell bent on me not being able to watch Dragon Ball Z, to the point to where he even like told my mom like he can't watch this. So I had to sneak and watch it for the longest fucking time, which was
I did
just
that with Pokemon, dude. That's so funny.
yeah absurd. Like, but it just and to this day like I guess it's because it was violent. They said "damn it" and "bastard" every once in a while, but like
Mhm.
that those things never stood out to me like in that way. I guess
Yeah.
I didn't realize that there was cussing in Dragon Ball Z until like way late, and then I'm like, wait a minute, that's been there the whole fucking time. Like I'm sure something like that happened, and my dad was like, yeah, absolutely not. But I remember it specifically was in the Cell Saga, and 17 and 18 were fighting with somebody, and he was like, no, you can't watch this. And I was like, what? And then like, all right, well, I guess I just won't tell you I'm watching it.
Talk about trauma, man. I was literally like I had like a hybrid memory of like the stuff I watched when I was a kid and then like trauma associated with it. Like Pokemon was that for me. Like I was like obsessed with Pokemon in the show. and like was so eager to get a Game Boy Color. Like every kid had a
Yeah.
Game Boy Color in the neighborhood, and they were all playing and doing link battles. And like I was just like, oh my god, I got to get a Game Boy at some point. And my mom, I came from a really spiritual / religious family. My mom found out that the card game was made by Wizards of the Coast, and correct me if I'm wrong, who made Magic the
Only the
Gathering.
first set. Only the base set was made by Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah. Too bad you weren't there to help explain this. So she had come out of, I guess, 70s or 80s where people got like psychotic over the game or something. Some like maybe one, just like today probably. And now that I think about it, one or two
Satanic
instances
panic.
of some, yeah, like that happened. So I remember she gave me this like article to read about the person who like killed their friend or something because of Magic the Gathering or whatever, or whatever it was. And then she was like, "Yeah, I don't think you should watch Pokemon anymore." And dude, I thought that, well, I was devastated, like devastated. Not only that, but monster was like another word for demon. I think I can't remember that. That's what I remember. And I would just
Did you
remember
know
like
they were called pocket monsters?
yeah, and I'm like, and I was, dude,
Mom's
I was
doing
crying.
research.
I was devastated. I was crying, and she's like, "I'm going to tell the neighbors too." It was very similar kind of to the vibe of what you described. And I remember just being like, "That's literally one of the only things that made me happy, that made me the most happy in my young life that I wanted," and someone just tells you no. And it's
Yeah.
like, but dude, after that, it's so fun. I might have told you guys this, but I had this in my room. I did have a TV, but it was an old Emerson tube TV, of course. Like, what else would have been a flat screen? It was a tube TV, but it had a knob, right, where you would turn it on and off. So I couldn't even sit back and watch it. But I would do the same kind of thing you did with Dragon Ball. I'd wake up really early in the morning and turn it on to watch reruns, and I'd have my hand on the knob, where if I heard someone coming, I would shut it off and leap back into bed,
Yes.
and then just like put the blankets over me. And that's like looking back now, it seems so psychotic, but like to a young kid, that's your whole world, is like the parts you like about it, right? But yeah, that that comes to mind for sure.
See, like my childhood was almost the exact opposite, where like I was
Yeah, like
probably
here's a
allowed
gun.
to, I was probably allowed to watch stuff way beyond my age range at the time. Like
Not me.
another one of my core memories is like it's probably like 7 or 8 years old at my brother's baseball game, just like in front of the whole crowd there, telling everybody I was the great Cornholio. So like I was watching like Beavis and Butthead like way too early.
That's something that like I went and saw the first Beavis and Butthead Do America.
Yeah.
Like that was one of the first movies I saw in theaters as a kid. Like it was like Lion King and then that. And my stepdad took me to see it because I don't like my mom's house. Like they were a lot more lax with me and let me get into more. There are things that they drew the line on, which I'll get to because I want to mention Take Root Yoga's comment, but
Yeah, I saw that.
There were things where they were like, no, you can't touch that. But like with Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z, they never really cared about. But like with Beavis and Butthead, my stepdad took me to see the movie, and it was early in my stepdad's relationship with my mom. Like, I mean that sub 5 years, 1 to 5 years. I can't remember exactly how long they were together, but enough time for my dad to get real upset that I went to the movies and saw Beavis and Butthead. Like I remember it being a giant problem with like between my dad and my stepdad. It's like one of the major conflicts that they had. But like for me, where they did draw the line was Magic the Gathering. I wasn't allowed to touch it. And Taker Yoga says we got banned from Yu-Gi-Oh. Mom tried to say no about Pokemon. We were like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with this. And we kept going. Like I was into Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon and all that stuff. And I was over at a friend's house. He was talking about this game called Magic. and they had really cool art on the cards, and probably showed me cards that are worth stupid amounts of money now because this is in like early 2000s. And I brought home some cards that he gave me. He gave me like lands and just extra little things that I couldn't do anything with. Just had my stepdad saw him and he was like, absolutely fucking not. Like, this game's satanic, it's evil, blah blah. And they had never went that route about anything. And that was satanic and evil. And they weren't gonna let me touch it. But I think to this day they had saw how I went through Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And all the money that got sunk into trading cards. So they went that route to deter me from another trading card game. Like, they were just banned me from it because they were like, we're not doing trading cards anymore. Tired of fucking buying these.
Yeah, like I said, I never had to. I don't remember anything ever being banned like that, but I did. My best friend, like throughout my childhood, had parents like that. So I remember when we both got into Yu-Gi-Oh, like his parents let him play Yu-Gi-Oh, but if he ever got cards that had anything to do with like a witch or anything, he had to give them to me. Like just as like a default. Like, hey, I can't have these.
Damn,
So it was like,
it's crazy.
so I think for him it was like specifically like witchcraft aspects of things. So like, it's like I said with Yu-Gi-Oh, that was one thing, and I don't think he ever watched or read any Harry Potter stuff until like
Mm.
after we graduated high school, I think. So yeah, luckily I never really directly was ever
Yeah,
directly affected by any of it, but I did see it, so I knew it was out there.
yeah. I know Kane and my wife, she didn't get to touch Harry Potter like all through her childhood, and she didn't get into Harry Potter until we were together. And like, I'd talked it up for so long, and she like started reading. We went and saw uh Deathly Hallows Part 1 in theaters, and I've been reading Harry Potter my whole life. Like, this is a huge moment. Like, we're waiting for this. And she watches that and enjoyed it. And then in between parts 1 and 2, like release, she read all the books and literally finished reading the seventh book in the theater, waiting for part 2 to start. She finished it right there. So she got to like finish the book, and then the movie starts and we get to see the end. And like, that Harry Potter's been like always been a big thing for me. I know it's a big thing for us and it's cool, but like, it was something that was kept from her, and now she's like a huge fan of it.
I looked at the chat. It sounds like Pokemon and Harry Potter were unanimously a point of contention for most our families. Dude, when I was saying though, I wasn't allowed to watch Harry Potter. Wasn't allowed to watch certain Disney movies either. Like even like Cinderella and stuff, because they thought it was witchcraft. And man, apparently
The fairy
everything was.
godmother.
Oh yeah, dude. But yeah, I remember my
Man,
mom
yeah.
found out. I watched one of the Harry Potter movies on TV when I was like 16. I was working at a camp out
You
of
were
state.
corrupted.
Dude, it was one of the worst conversations we've ever had.
Oh,
She was devastated. Like I had just lost my way and was just under the influence of demons at that point, and I was just like,
oh man, she lost you.
my whole mood was just like, just rubbing my forehead, just like, Mom, like you're killing me. Like give me a break. But yeah, it's just, I look back now though, like not to get off on like a whole rant or anything, but it just they're just scared of that stuff. They just didn't understand it. Had all these red flags that tied to things in the Bible or whatever they read, and they're just scared, didn't know what to do with it. Scared that it was gonna, open your life up to some crazy, awful thing. So I'm over it now, but man, at the time, those things just mess with you as a kid, for sure. But
I feel like being kept from things did worse for me than good,
mhm.
because all it did was put a wall up between me and my family. That makes sense. Like, anything they ever kept me from,
Oh
like,
yeah,
instead
I
of
get it.
explaining it to me and they just shut it down, like, it just made me be like, why? Like, you're just gonna tell me it's bad and not really tell me why. Like, I never really got much of a legit explanation. I feel like, or I may have, and was just so mad at the time, and a kid didn't understand that it, whatever. But like, at this point in my life, I think back on, I'm like, I never really given a good reason why certain things were just shut off to me, and then having to discover it on my own, just, I don't know, just to disconnect.
Yeah. Well, sometimes there are good reasons for some
Yeah.
like some of the stuff for parents.
There very well
of
could
course.
have been. I just like, my personal view of my history is like,
Oh yeah, I was going to agree with you. It's like,
yeah,
well, my parents would even explain stuff to me, but I was like, well, I disagree with that. So, it's like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to agree with you that Pokemon's is evil. I'm just not. Like, it's not, I don't
Yeah.
share your opinion or your view on that. So then it just kind of goes like, I don't know. There was no, growing up for a lot of stuff, there was just no compromise, right? And I think, like, for me with my kids, it's be like, okay, how do I compromise? Because it's more than just going like, well, as long as you live under this roof, it's going to be this way. Because I'm like, well, what if I genuinely think this thing is dangerous to them? What good does that do them that they're just going to hit it like a wall when they turn 18 and move out, right? If I
Yeah.
really want to protect them from us, we're going to have to, like, talk through it and understand it now, so that they don't just, it doesn't do me any good as a father or parent who cares about his kids for them just to jump into things that I think are bad,
Mhm.
but that's just a difference, I think, in theology between how a lot of our parents grew up and stuff. But yeah, now,
Definitely
dude,
different
now I mean,
generations.
heck, we even watched some Rick and Morty with the boys the other night. We had to pick and choose some episodes, but I was
Yeah.
like, this is so far
How do you
far
filter
removed.
that?
Yeah. Oh, dude. What we did. Well, you don't 100%. You just go, what
Yeah.
is okay enough? And like, what's
Mhm.
absolutely not okay, and what is kind of okay. But they're also 12 and 13, and
Yeah.
they're, the kids talk about in school and stuff is pretty much on par or worse than a lot of half the episodes of Rick and Morty. So anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
that's my thought. I'm just reading one of the comments. Yeah, Kanan was just, I think, echoing your point that you made.
Yeah.
Barrett.
Yeah, I
We
know
missed Killian.
Kanan mentioned like Disney was all that they did. Like what was your relationship with Disney growing up?
Hmm.
I think that's a big part of my childhood. My mom was the person that introduced a lot of the Disney stuff to me. So like, it wasn't like a religion, like I feel like it was in Kanan's house. But it was like a big part. Like I said, like I think the first movie I ever saw in theaters was The Lion King.
Hmm.
And there was a while where I feel like I saw like probably all the Toy Stories in theaters, and like Toy Story was a huge part of my childhood. Um, Around like, that's probably where like I deferred from like the late 90s animation. It's probably a lot of Disney thinking about it. It's like, um, with the Toy Story movies and God, whatever else was around that time. I was big into those, but it just kind of it faded out for a while. And now that with Ollie, like I've been able to catch up with a lot of stuff that I've missed and or not paid attention to. Um, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, so I don't know. We weren't allowed to watch all the Disney movies, right? So it depended. It's like Lion King was fine, right? I don't think there's any real
talking
conflict.
lines, nothing evil about that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I'm sure if I wanted to, as a hyper conservative parent or something, I could think of a reason not to, but they didn't.
Yeah.
So we were allowed to watch, some of those here and there, or pretty much anything that didn't have some reference to magic. But like Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, stuff like that, that was like a no-no. We just didn't put it on. So yeah, but like my relationship with Disney movies, I don't want to get like try to be controversial or anything, but back in the day, like Disney movies were just always good movies. Like if a new movie was coming out and it was Disney, you just knew it was going to be good and entertaining and like have a really good story. I don't even know if I thought about the fact that like, oh, it's Disney and there's this huge fandom associated with Disney. It was just like, oh, a new Pixar movie. Or, I remember like Treasure Planet, Atlantis, The Lost Empire. Like those are movies where I was like, those look like the coolest thing ever to like an 11-year-old boy
Mm,
or whatever, and stuff. So yeah, just was pumped for a long time. I think through my whole childhood, I think we got to experience through the 90s and stuff and early 2000s, like some of the best Disney that's ever existed.
yeah.
Yeah, that's my relationship with it. I love like Fantasia 2000 is one of my favorite movies probably ever. Just the animation, the music, and stuff like that. And I think like a lot of the same reasons I like video games is because of how they told stories and all that. So yeah, that was it for
Yeah.
me. What about you, Brandon?
So like I didn't have a lot of access to it. I don't, from what I remember. Um, I think like everybody, I the first Disney movie I remember seeing was Lion King, and that was only because around the time that it came out, like, or at least around the time that it came out on VHS, my dad got like this new surround sound system for the house, and like his like go-to to showing it off was like showing the like the intro to Lion King with like Circle of Life and everything,
Hmm.
just because of like all the different animal sounds like you have as they're like running by the screen. Like he showed that off just to just about anybody. But like outside of that, I don't remember having much access to Disney. The only uh, I'd say the only time I would watch them, like outside of that one time, would be my my aunt used to work at a uh, like a video rental store here in town, like before Blockbuster and Hollywood Video got big.
Which one?
I can't remember the name of it.
Was it Take Two?
No, it was
Family Video?
it was on the other it was on Dalton Pike, but
Oh, okay.
it was like attached to a pizza place called Sports Pizza. I can't remember the name of the rental place, but when we worked there, she would always get like a lot of like VHS or like Super Nintendo games and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, like so anything like she would rent, I would watch if I stayed over at my cousin's house. But like outside of that, don't remember having much access to Disney. Um, and like I said, it was very limited. But there was like a period of time where like I didn't watch anything, and I um I remember like my dad and my brother were out of town like one weekend for something, so me and my mom went to the movies to see Lilo and Stitch, and so that's another one of those core memories for me.
Yeah.
But like I probably went through a period of like 10 years or so where I probably didn't see anything Disney outside of maybe Cars, maybe. But like
I've never seen any of those.
I didn't really get back into anything Disney until Frozen came out, and even that I avoided Frozen for like the first year just because of Let It Go. Like took over everything for a little while. So I just like avoided Frozen like the plague.
Mhm.
But
I
yeah,
worked at Hot Topic during that fucking madness, and let me tell you, a lot of fandoms got ruined in that amount of time between working in like fandom retail. There's a lot of things that I just had to avoid because it was just like it felt like work,
yeah.
and Frozen was definitely a part of that. But honorable mention, I forgot Tarzan was one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, it was
Dude,
good.
Like
yes.
trying to think of like some of the ones that I watched: Tarzan, A Bug's Life, like two ones that I would have on repeat. But there's definitely a period of time saying where like probably 8 to 10 years where I didn't touch a Disney movie unless like
Goofy
I feel
movie.
like
Kanan.
Oh, Goofy movie.
Goofy
Yeah.
movies
Yeah.
peak.
Yeah.
Just watched
Goofy
that the
movie.
other night.
The second one,
Oh man.
extremely goofy movie or whatever with
Hmm.
the fucking X Games in it.
Power line.
Yes.
And we have Ayusha join the chat, and they're saying Moana is my childhood Disney
Moana.
movie.
That one I was late to the party on, but it is so good. And Jackson is the reason that I watched that. Like
Yeah.
whenever he at one point I remember him being so into it and um watched it with him at some point along the way. And that, I mean, Disney's got it now with, especially in that animation style. We just recently watched Encanto, and I mean, Ollie's obsessed with it, but it became my favorite Disney movie of all time. Like,
Really?
yeah,
Man.
that one definitely made the top contenders at least. Like, if I was gonna
Mm.
rank them, it quickly went up there. It was just like they just have a way to fucking rip your heart out, and they know exactly how to do it. Like,
Yeah.
and each one kind of caters to different emotions and stuff. But like, I feel like I really noticed it with Inside Out. To
I
how
was
like
just thinking Inside Out. Yeah.
yeah, Inside Out was just so good, and like they've just latched onto some sort of storytelling that's like I don't know, it's exactly what you need at the right time, and I don't know, just emotion provoking. I'm a I'm kind of a wuss whenever it comes to like a good story, especially like I don't know, I'm empathetic, very empathetic. So like there's some Disney movies that I've probably avoided for a long time because I was like, ah, it's just gonna make me cry. I don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah. As far as like a lot of the newer stuff, I think Coco is probably my favorite.
Coco is really good too. I've
Yeah.
only seen it a few times, but
Yeah. Seen
yeah,
Coco a lot. I don't know if gosh, I'm trying to think of a fairly recent one I really enjoyed, but I don't know. I think that's a lot of the older ones are still my favorite. Um, Up is one of my favorite Disney movies. You talk about sentimental.
yeah.
Um, yeah, that movie will kick your butt. It's
In the
almost
first
too heavy.
15 minutes,
Yeah, oh
like
man, it's
just
like,
right off the bat, just hit you with the hook.
dude, I knew people who went and saw it and they were like, they weren't ready for some of the
Mm-mm.
subject matter in that movie. We got a fun question if you guys don't mind us jump into it. Um, Ayusha says, "Do you guys believe Disney put subliminal messages in the movies?"
Yeah,
Short
I
answer,
think
yes.
they've probably got more subtle in current one. I don't know so much about current ones, but I know like a lot of the. I mean, you go back and watch like certain parts of Aladdin, and I mean, I've watched the clip videos where like it goes through all
Yeah.
the different like really inappropriate subliminal things that are in a lot of movies. It's like,
Yeah.
oof, how do you talk your way out of that one?
So I don't
Yeah.
think that I don't think Disney necessarily like
You mean like Walt Disney
no like
himself?
Disney as a company is like I don't think anybody specifically decided that hey we have to have something like this in there.
Why is Barrett laughing at me? All right, whatever. Keep going.
but but I
I think
do
Disney had an agenda. Okay, gotcha.
yeah I don't think as a company they had any kind of agenda like that. But I mean they're these are just human beings that make this stuff and just from different properties throughout my life and like some of the behind the scenes stuff I've heard from different animators and stuff. I mean, they're just people like trying to get attention or get their art out there in some way. And I think it was just somebody behind the scenes deciding to throw stuff like this in there. And I don't even know if it was all completely for like any kind of like ill intent or subliminal message. Like it could have, I mean, it's no different than like people writing on bathroom stalls and stuff. I think it's just an attempt to be crude or humorous for a lot of people. So I think that's more likely than a subliminal message.
Yeah, I think there's also like, especially with some of the older ones, there's just an older sense of humor that at the time could be gotten away with, that whether it's inappropriate or not, is like something that's like you could subtly sneak into a cartoon,
Yeah.
and it's going to be overlooked and not noticed for who God knows how long. There's some of those things, man, that are like, I mean, it's hard to describe it as anything else, but it's in the moment. Whenever you watched it before, you didn't notice it. It didn't stand out then, but now, I don't know. Now I just feel like we know too much.
Yeah.
And
I
I
don't know.
think with
Personally,
go ahead.
I was gonna say I believe in 9 out of 10 probably to some degree conspiracy theories. So when you say subliminal, yeah, there's some stuff that's like snuck in the movies. It's crude or gross and stuff, but it's also you know Disney also tries to put in messaging and stuff like that's influential, right? Um, I don't know if that counts as subliminal, right? But they have a set of things they believe in, and they have values that they try to convey and push in their movies and stuff, especially now. Um, so yeah, definitely, I think the short answer is yes. I just saw the
Yeah.
message in the.
I mean, yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna
I mean,
say there was one on the cover of the original Little Mermaid, I believe.
yeah, I mean, if the question is like, do we believe in it? I think it's been probably proven that there absolutely is that stuff
I mean,
in the
the
movies.
whole glove one is
Yeah,
like the most consistent. you know?
yeah. But I'm sorry, Brandon, what were you saying?
Well, I mean, to kind of build off what you said, I think all the subliminal stuff would be in the actual storytelling itself of like,
Hmm.
here's how we want this specific situation to play out. But yeah, when it comes to the artwork and stuff, I don't think it's as subliminal. I think that's more just artistic choice by animators and
Yeah.
stuff. Um,
Yeah, it's like all the frames we slide in these podcasts, right? Like if you slowed it down, you'd see like,
Just
play
say
it
like
play it
you'd see like
backwards.
yeah, you'd see
accidents happen.
Cthulhu and yeah, bloodborne symbols and all that. That's not by no means is there an agenda.
And there's like with a lot of the newer stuff, there's definitely like, and I don't think it's so much subliminal. I think it's more they're probably more transparent about it, but there are definitely jokes put into kids movies now where I think they're meant for the parents that are watching them with the kids. It's like the kids aren't going to understand them, but the parents will.
Yeah. There are there any things that y'all really enjoyed, books, movies, games, whatever, and maybe anything else as a kid that now you're just like we talked a little bit we talked a little bit last episode about like Kingdom Hearts and stuff, and Barrett, yet you forever changed my perspective on those, and I'm gonna have to like undergo therapy to love those games again. But yeah, you made a really good point though. I've been thinking about it. I was like, there are things I enjoy or enjoyed, but they really don't make sense anymore. Like,
Mhm.
and maybe they're good in some ways, but like in principle, they don't make sense. And I give you one example, and it's not going to be the one that I mentioned earlier, but like, okay, like Batman, for example. Like I think about this one pretty often. I'm like, here's this guy with tons of financial resources with a company, right? And he decided the best thing he can do for society is go like punch people, like and do that. And I'm like, man, like, and has no one really to help influence like how he does any of this. And it's like, especially like the most recent Batman movie you're watching, you're just kind of um, like this is like not how you'd want anyone to do this, right? Like I'd be,
Mm.
crazy. You're like, okay, here's how I'm gonna fix the problems. I'm gonna go learn how to fight, and I'm gonna put on a costume as a bat. And here's the thing, that was like so cool to me for the longest time. And even going, like, he is crazy. That's part of the appeal of the character, is like he's
Yeah.
messed up in the head. But then eventually I started looking at it and going like, man, that's like not any type of role model. like,
No,
like
no,
go
at
put
all.
on a bat suit. Yeah, and I'm just like, what the heck, you know?
Well,
So it's kind of like one of those things where I like you start getting disenchanted. So anyway, that's just an example of one that for me, I'm
that's
just
one that
like,
like boils down to like really just childhood trauma. Like he watched his parents get killed, and like that's his inspiration to doing this. As far as like fighting crime and stuff like that's as simple as you can put it, I guess.
yeah, but like to that extent, that exact point, like, do you know how many you'd think when he turned 19, he'd be like, oh wow, turns out there was some world wars where a lot of people's parents got killed, you know, like there's been a lot of people's parents that died and stuff. I'm not the first or last person this has happened to, you know. Maybe go to a support group or something. I don't know. Like kind of realize like, oh, I'm not the only person that bad
He
things
had
happen
a
to.
lot of money and he was raised by a butler that let him do whatever the fuck he wanted to do.
Yeah,
Like,
Thank you, thank
exactly.
you. Point in case, man.
but it is like kind of my disassociation with a lot of superhero stuff.
Yeah,
Like the point you're making there is like they all have some sort
yeah.
of backstory that led them to where they are, and some of them are cooler than others. Like I definitely like certain depictions of them, but like the direction I was thinking your question was like, what's something that at one point I thought was awesome and really cool, but if I tried to show it to somebody to show it off, and you rewatch it, and you're like, this really isn't as good as I remember it
That
being.
okay. I like that. I like the way you put. It's okay. So, what do you have one?
Well,
Wait,
I mean,
so where you're embarrassed to show it even? Oh man, that's really good.
Kingdom Hearts can be one of them, and
But we all had Stockholm syndrome together though. So it's kind of
mhm.
like you tell me you loved it, and I'm like, yeah, I loved it too, you know. But
Yeah, but people that like Kingdom Hearts get it. There's people that like don't really understand, don't really get it, and they're like, it's Disney characters and like some anime characters just like run around together. And you try and show them like a really cool cutscene, it's like the wrong one. It's just a bunch of oohs and ah, and and it's not. Final Fantasy X is a great game, but you try and show it to people, and it's like this is kind of fucking. It's outdated now, but like a lot of the cutscenes are extra cringe and like only holds up to nostalgia really than like a new player. Um, I don't know. Square Enix games can kind of, I feel like they can be extremely cheesy out of context. But
it can be.
I don't know. You guys have any games like that, or anything that any fandom that you enjoyed at a certain point, and then you think about it now, and you're like, not one of my like high points.
You know, the one that like I can't like there's no one in the world I would like tell this to because it's cool or interesting. It's like talk about like the Pog collection I had. Like, do you guys remember Pogs? Like
Oh
it's so
yeah.
far back. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
yeah, man. There are these I don't even know if we played it right. But it's like yeah, these
You
licensed
played it?
pieces of carp.
I
Yeah,
just
there was
remember
You played
collecting
the
them.
game?
yeah, there was way. I mean, like I said, I played it to what I understood you were supposed to do. But like I've thought about it like every 3 months since I played it 20 years ago or whatever, and I'm like, whoa, there's no way that was how you played it. Like you didn't hit this one piece of cardboard with another piece, and then they fell in a certain way. Like I literally don't know what we were doing. But like my point is that like you know if you were to like show off your pog collection or tell someone about how cool pogs were, like there's nothing good would come would come of that. So yeah, that's the one. I'm sure there's stuff in there that I don't want to talk about, but like memories, but that's the only one right now that comes to mind.
I don't really
It's
recall any that like I used to like but now don't. But there are things that I mean I like growing up and even still like that it's been a little harder to be open about to an extent. Like I'm more comfortable with it now because I just don't care and I know that it comes from a place of just a lot of people either not being exposed to it or just not understanding what it is. But like, I'm a huge pro wrestling fan and still watch it to this day. But it's always been one of those things, not necessarily taboo, but it was definitely a guilty pleasure to some extent, where it's like, yeah, you don't really talk about this in public. But now it's gotten to the point where it's just, I think it's misunderstood
Hmm.
because a lot of people see it as, well, these people are just dullards and they think this stuff's real. And it's really like, well, no,
Wrestling's fake.
we know it's fake, but so is every movie you go to the theaters and watch. So it's like, I mean, I
My favorite
guarantee.
argument.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can't fake gravity. You can't fake
No, no,
gravity. You
there's,
can't fake
yeah,
the stamina it takes. You can't fake any of that. It's crazy when people don't see it as like I don't know. People don't like things and they're immediately like, that's dumb. It's fake. They're not even really like fighting each other. And
yeah,
you got things like UFC to compare it with, which is uncomparable because it's not
yeah, yeah,
that at all. And people just see that and try and put it in the same vein, and they're like, yeah, it's
yeah, and that's
apples and oranges.
the comparison I always make now. It's like, if someone ever gives me that argument, it's like, well, I mean, it's essentially like a live Marvel movie, without all the special effects. Like, these people are like, it's closer to something like ballet than it is an actual sport. Like, these people are acting,
Hmm.
and to some extent it's choreographed, but um, even then it's like very loosely choreographed to a point where it's like, well, we might do these specific moves, but like, we're literally going to just kind of like ad lib it the whole time we're out there.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I think a lot of that is just perception of it from people that don't really understand it. But it's something I've had to get used to, or at least get comfortable with being open about being a fan of it.
I heard
Yeah,
that's a good one. Um, Pokemon was like that for a chunk of my life. I remember when it was uncool for a while and you didn't talk
Oh
about
yeah, for sure.
still liking Pokemon. It was like it was out of style.
Yeah.
And
I think
I remember
Pokemon
like
Go changed that though, because everybody had a cell
I
phone.
yeah, yeah, for definitely for like the wide reception of it, but um yeah, for a while it was super uncool. And then I remember, excuse me, in high school, I remember having a group of friends that felt the same about it, and we started talking about how we were going to bring it back, like it ever really went anywhere. We are going to bring Pokemon back, so we're like building decks and playing Pokemon battles and like in the cafeteria at lunchtime and having like a whole table. Everyone was playing fucking Pokemon, and like I remember that growing and growing and growing, and like everyone would have a Pokemon card on their like lanyard with their name tag, and I really felt like we did something. I'm not gonna lie, but like my parents still like joke with me and be like, "You remember when you brought Pokemon back? Like it ever fucking went
that's
anywhere?" They love to give me shit about that stuff, but I was uh passionate, still am, but
no,
I had
it's
a lot of
funny.
pride
Like,
for that shit.
I think it's awesome. Well, it's funny. Like Brandon, you talking about the wrestling thing is, the, if there was a time when people were embarrassed to talk about that, I feel like it would have been like 20 years ago. But there was a lot less awareness, depending where you lived, of like why it was cool and what the appeal was. But I've never been into it, but I remember working with a gentleman and a store manager, and he talked about it. He's like, "Here's why it's awesome." He broke it down for me. He was like, "Yeah, it's a live performance. It's like going and seeing like a medieval show at one of these places where you can eat and see the live performance." And he's like, "And they're like real life comic book characters, and there's an actual narrative, right? And like, but you're seeing it in real time, and it kind of goes on, and like these are athletes and stuff." So I see the appeal in it now. It's interesting to hear you talk about there being a time when you're embarrassed by it, but it made me realize like it's really only relatively recent that like telling people I'm into video games without getting comfortable first, like just straight up someone's like, so what are your hobbies? Just being like, oh, I'm a gamer. Like I love gaming.
Mm-hmm.
And like, what, and then I used to hide that, like not put that out there. Um, but then people started being like, so, you watch sports, and me be like, no. And then they're just kind of like, well, then what are you into? But,
Mm-hmm.
now dude, it got to the point with like work and stuff to where like I just got so tired of not talking about things that were important to me when you have to listen to someone else talk about golf or something. No offense if you're into
Shit you
that.
don't care
But
about. Yeah.
yeah, and eventually I just started being like, yeah, I love video games, and just talking about it, and they could listen or not, but and if they made fun of me, I'd be like, listen, I don't know if you guys realize this, but it's like, oh, that's kind of it's kind of a big thing now. Like that
Mm-hmm.
that's a way in which the internet's been a good thing for a lot of people who have fandoms and stuff, is realizing like, oh, I'm not just like some freak or immature person who's into this. Like this is a practical piece of entertainment that's probably better than whatever the person judging you is thinking. But yeah, my point was it made me, Brandon, your story made me realize like, yeah, I used to not want to tell people I was a
So
gamer or how into games I was.
Mm-hmm.
I think for wrestling, there's like certain moments throughout time where like it's kind of broken mainstream, but like yeah, they're definitely like I guess from like the early to mid 2000s up until probably like the last like 5 to 10 years or so. I think there was a period where like I knew a bunch of people that were into it, but nobody wanted to talk about it publicly. Like it's like yeah, that's something we do, but that's not something we talk about. And yeah, I don't really know what it was other than just a lot of people misunderstanding it. But as far as video
Mm-hmm.
games, like I've definitely experienced that too. And this is probably like a bigger or deeper discussion for another time. But at a surface level, I think part of that comes from just the generation that we grew up in the sense of we're probably like the last generation that like kind of grew up before and after the internet and video games became popular. So a lot of that, just like wrestling, like a lot of the video game stuff, a lot of that shame came from parents and elders that didn't understand it or didn't see the appeal in it. And
Mm-hmm.
I at the job I currently work at, like I've climbed the ranks pretty far. So like at an earlier late, like my early 20s, like I was in positions that was, you know, on the same level of like people in their 50s and 60s, and I'm like walking in there talking about playing video games, I have tattoos and stuff. So it was it was definitely an opportunity to kind of like be on the same level as those people instead of being in a situation where I was answering to somebody like my parents. So like it took being in those positions to get comfortable talking about stuff like that to a point where now I just kind of like bust their balls about it. Where it's like I've got a guy I work with that I mean he's still living in the 70s in his head, and I give him shit all the time where he'll talk about this younger generation, and I'll just not to knock anybody for what they're into, but I'm like, all right, Doug, go collect your coins and watch the news. Like nothing you're doing is, any more exciting than what I'm doing. So, yeah, I think some of that's just generational, where a lot of people don't understand gaming.
All right,
Think
Doug, we
about
got it.
like
Yeah.
uh, being told that you're gonna just rot your brain out sitting in front of that TV all day. It's not good for you, and like, I mean, I could think of a dozen things that being able to get into video games helped me with, like just problem solving, like just
Yeah,
having a more interactive way of problem solving, building reaction times, like because I remember like it's like a probably not a brag, but kind of a brag. But I remember my friend Nate, like I used to drive him around all the time. He used to tell me I'd drive like I was in a video game, and it's probably because the video game taught me more about driving than my parents did. It's like just as far as like staying in the lines and don't hesitate.
I said, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I really did. I wasn't going too far with that. It was just like there's like so much video games have like helped in my day-to-day life that it's a younger generation won't really like they're gonna be like, yeah, well duh. But our generation's like, yeah, but that was kind of like held from us to a certain extent. And like it was also in this like state of evolution. It didn't even know what it was entirely yet for and now games are so polished and the games that kids play are so technical that it just is so far beyond anything we grew up playing as far as like the technicalities of it. Is it doesn't matter how nostalgic you want to be. Like some stuff just like there's the fact like you take like Fortnite with the building mechanic and how good kids could get at all that I mean, those kids could do anything. If they were good at that, they could literally do anything. You know what I mean? They can pick up shit like that.
And see, when it comes to Fortnite, I'm the old man yelling at clouds there. Like, I don't build. I play zero build.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't try to shame people that are into that. It's like,
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest lesson in all of it is, at least from our parents and those that came before us. It's like, I don't know when they saw things out of the ordinary, it was like the first action was to shame anybody else from doing something different. And I think
Hmm.
that's like the one biggest thing. I know it can probably be detrimental to some extent, but I think that's the biggest like the biggest positive to our generation is just being able to accept new things, and if it's not your thing, allow somebody else to accept it the way or enjoy it the way they want to.
I realize now too, there's a camp of people for everything,
Yeah.
right? It's
Hmm.
like it's and I think part of the reason like we don't mind being open to what their interests are is part of it is we are getting older, right? Being in your early 20s and stuff, you're still getting out of caring what everybody thinks and what their opinion of you is, and so you try to hide some of that stuff, but then you get older and you realize there's so many more important things to worry about that I don't have time to care about. If someone thinks it's stupid, spend my time playing video games or whatever. And to y'all's point, there's all these reasons that it probably is a better use of time than XYZ, right? But the that was the thing I was gonna say is oh shoot, I lost my train of thought. I saw something in the IM. Someone asked about flat Earth. I was just totally
Oh
lost
yeah.
my train of thought there. Do we have time to talk about that one?
I'm
uh,
fine with it.
I don't think I
It's
do
gonna be
tonight.
short and sweet.
Man,
It's
we'll
gonna be
have
short and
to
sweet.
chat.
I can
Yeah,
answer that question.
no, I want to know because I have thoughts too. I want to make the answer complicated, so maybe we can pick up
Uh,
on that one next session.
we
Parts of
we
it
should
are
have
flat.
a whole 2 to 3 hour session about our favorite conspiracies for sure.
Oh, please.
And
Yeah.
aliens. We can talk about the current state of the aliens and how long is it going to be until we meet one, and
I don't
who
know.
do we think's
See,
been one the whole time? You know,
I got a great theory on that. So I can't wait to talk
wonderful.
about some of this stuff. And we'll have to talk more about
I
Nintendo 64.
Shannon mentioned Glover, yeah,
Yeah.
and Glover and Bomberman 64, both of those I used to love. But I feel like I can't remember the exact how Glover played. I remember renting it from Take Two Video. It was a video store right up. It was off of Georgetown Road, like out right across from Hopewell School. And that was our video store growing up. And There was also a Nintendo store in town. I don't know if you remember that, Brandon.
I don't think so.
Where the Rocky Top Shell gas station is on Inman and Keith Street. There's a building right behind it. It's a little house, and it used to have the Nintendo logo on the side of the building. And they
No
had
way. That's
specifically,
awesome.
and they had it was like a game store, but they had like cartridge cassette, games. It was all that. But yeah, I remember renting both of those games, Glover and Bomberman. Like, never owned them, but I remember playing them for a good period of time. And it was in that time frame where like almost everything used the same assets. Like you'd see assets across
Yeah.
from like Banjo Kazooie to uh, Super Mario 64 to Ocarina of Time. Like they all shared landscape assets and stuff. And I remember enjoying those games because I feel like they were along those same lines. Like it just, I don't know, in that same vein with those games.
Yeah, the only thing I know that doesn't, well, outside of stuff like uh, Pal World, but the only thing I ever really noticed like that now is like there's a lot of like Japanese games that use like a lot of the same sound effects and stuff.
Yeah,
Like there's a Dragon
yeah,
Ball game that has like the same like menu sound effects as like I can't remember what it was now. There it was like the first Xenoverse game, and I think a shoot, I can't remember what it was now. But like I've seen it across like different, like I've heard a couple like sound effects from Kingdom Hearts when I played it to like Final Fantasy VII. And
oh yeah,
it's nothing
yeah,
like
totally.
inside the gameplay. It's like all menu sound effects.
Yeah,
Yep.
the
Yeah.
scrolling sound and selecting sound. Yeah, that's definitely all the same.
That's
Um,
some talk about subliminal, right? Some of that it, like they did it on purpose. They're trying to remind me of
mm-hmm.
Final Fantasy. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Well, guys, probably about that time for us.
Yep.
It's been
Yeah,
a fun conversation.
hit the 2 hour.
All these, yeah, a lot of great engagement from the chat. So thank y'all for that.
Yeah. Thank you
That's
for
really
stopping
fun.
by.
Miss Killigan
Hope you
said
see
our
us in the
kids
future.
won't know what it was like to have to rent games like that, and it is a very like, I don't know. We had something special with that. I mean, it's a different time now. Like they'll have all these new memories that they can make, but like it is a very special memory to like think about the rental era of my childhood and how like that was a
Mm.
big part of our weekends was like going to the video store with my stepdad and he would pick out a movie and I could pick out a movie. And when I started getting into games, I could pick out games and like just having that recycled service like that was
I
a whole lot of fun.
there's probably a few different things like that for me. Like I know there's always like different societal things like generation to generation where we may not remember something in a certain way, but I mean renting video games is definitely one, but I think for me it's either like watching TV, like cable TV or something, and or having like a landline. And cable TV in the sense
Hmm.
of I know it still exists, and a lot of people still have it, but just having to be on time to like watch when a show or movie started, and if you got there 10 minutes late, just oh well, like that's where you were at.
You remember
But
how crazy TiVo was? You
oh
remember how
yeah,
Oh man,
insane that was that you could like
only rich people had
schedule and
TiVo,
record
man.
shit?
yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But
It
and like I
was
said,
like
I know cable still exists now, but
Only
I know
rich people
for
still have TiVo.
my
who's
kids
using
though,
cable.
I know for my kids, like I don't think we've had cable the entire time they've been alive. It's always been some streaming service. So they're
Yep.
like all they know is on demand at that point.
Yeah.
And then like
And again,
landline
I do
phones. Like
remember that video store.
I don't think I've used a landline phone like from my house since I was in elementary school or middle school. Like
Did you? I know you're not like. Did I? We're kind of trail. If anyone's like ready to go, we could talk about the '90s. We could talk about the '90s, and I'm realizing that like
Yeah, we
It's
might have
Whole
to.
episode.
landlines and dial up and video stores. But like, yeah, having a landline, bro, I was on that phone all the fucking time, especially when I got in like middle school. My parents had to kick me off of it. And like, getting incoming calls and be like, hey, someone's calling, you want to wait while my parents talk to them? And then, like I literally like used to talk on the phone a lot. And it's probably like, I mean, I enjoy talking to people, so it never really changed. But it's crazy to think about like the probably record breaking hours I've spent on like one call before. Me and my friend Nick Am have spent, I think we've been on the phone for at least 10 hours before. Like I want to say like we have, it's crazy. One phone would die, you have to switch to another home phone. Like, hold on, I'm going to go get the one in my
Oh,
mom's
dude,
room.
I remember this. I don't know if I ever did 10 hours, but there were some long conversations. I remember getting in trouble for doing three-way calls too, and not
Oh
realizing there was a
yeah.
fee. There was a fee. My dad just set the bill on my bed, not to pay it, but just to be like, yeah, that cost me $40. Your calls with your little friends, So that was didn't do that again. Or I think I just got my friend to do it. I was like, hey, can you do the three-way call? Just put it on. His dad never
Dude,
looked at the bill.
you're three-way calling people and someone would be
Yeah.
quiet, and you'd like fuck with the other person.
But parting thought though before we go is like I love the nostalgia. Like, yeah, it's fun talking about those things, but also it does make you appreciate kind of the stuff we have now just so much. Like I'm still not over my PlayStation 5. Like I'm still just sit there sometimes and just navigate the menu and be like, I've got the
So
best
smooth.
games. Yeah. Yeah. I've got just looking at just being like, man, some of the best games I've ever played are all just here downloaded, and it's in 4K, and you got surround sound, you got your fancy headset and stuff, man. And it's just like, gosh, this is pretty awesome. Like this is nuts, and it's not taking that long to get it. It's not taking long for it to get that advanced. So it'd be cool to see some of the stuff that we're going to get to in the future. Just while we're still relatively young.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll get a slim version the first time around instead of having to, yeah.
Yeah, I got you. An OLED, yeah.
That's my parting thought.
Yeah, I like it. That's all you want is that slim version. Yep, I got
I
you.
mean, it just don't build the biggest console of all time and then make something smaller just to like.
Dude, I want it bigger next time. It needs to be like refrigerator. That's what I want.
I remember how funny I thought it was that PlayStation came back and we're like, you know what, Xbox? We're gonna make a console that would eat your fucking console. It'll fit inside it. And Xbox is
I
like,
like
well,
that.
we're making refrigerators now, so take that.
Before I forget it, I want one episode I want us to like have intentional console war for fun. Like which console's the best and why or something. But
Okay.
But anyway, guys, chat, thank you for your participation. Please continue thinking of
Yeah, for sure.
ideas and topics you want us to talk about. It. We haven't gotten probably this much engagement in the past, so sorry if we didn't get to all the topics, but really saw everything, and we look forward to talking more with y'all in the future. So yeah, more to come. And then to those, to Barrett and Brandon, love you guys. Have a good night, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yep. See y'all.
Good night.